Modern life plantation, planetary devastation, real alien invasion, and we plugged to the matrix. Frequencies and radiation, hijacked imagination. Tell me what we conversating if we ain't talking activation. Really ain't no time for waiting, second guessing, contemplating. First I gave you prophecy, this is my philosophy. Something far from Socrates. Yeah, I'm chasing sovereignty, but I was born a sovereign being. Lived 100 centuries, booted off a sense of being. Really ain't no sense in me. They try to steal my history. Rose above the misery, so I can guide my young supremes. And I hit the keys with them, and our knees will never bend. False gods and serpent skins, never fail, they never win. Focus on your dividends, this'll make the devil dance. Probably break you from a trance, so you can peep what's deep within. Yeah. Meditation, elevation, inner self for realization, mental wealth for innovation, spiritually been segregated, diamond hits for activation, seen some things now I'm awakened, sleepy heads been sleep for ages, neophytes inside the matrix, flip the switch, I'm on the trip, ascension starts with proper basics, pranayama, breath of fire, manifest my life's desire, sheep was false on life's acquire, hidden truth for life's retire, third eye open, vibratory frequencies, all itself, the demons be a part of you, a part of me, please pardon me, for vulgar speech, the higher self is where I reach, back to back, my brother's keeper, unity's my brother's teacher, earth, wind, fire, soul, activate like dynamo, heaven's gate, kick down the door, this the devil's rodeo, been here, seen some lights before, I'm searching for the hidden scrolls, I lost inside the physical, geometry's the visual, spread my wings like pigeon stools, solving no decision rules, inside you find the proper tools.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so let me make sure the sound is coming through. If you're hearing something on your side, just go ahead and send some thumbs up, send something. I can hear you. That's what it is. We alive. We're well. We're great. We're mighty. We're strong. This is the times to be in. This is the jubilant age. This is the time for truth. I'm fine. I'm waiting, I got, a whole squad ready to drop truth bombs on the entire world. Already been doing that. So let's keep going with this. So let me check. Yes, it looks like they're hearing something, or else they'll be like, yo, we can't hear you. So, I'm coming in here. I'm always at 100. You got to stay at 100, be at 100. Like, I trust that that's how you feel too. Obviously, we got to go in this evening. Like, I'm just going to drive around a bit. This is kind of like that classic, we're just going to drive through consciousness and also clarify a few things, because I have a feeling that, because of the title of this video, there will be, quite a few different types of souls that may drive across this just for a minute. They probably, half of them left on the intro. Great. That's a good filter. And, we really want to get this going, though. We want to continue what we do here in 2025, which, of course, is making you aware of who you are, especially in these times. Like, one has to be truly jubilant. As I mentioned earlier, you have to be really on point to go through what is happening right now. There's so many things going on everywhere, but if your foundation is solid and you're in real truth, you can trust. In the end, what remains will be the truth. Now, I'm just going to take one quick moment here and touch and connect before I take the train off, and that just is that time to celebrate what we have gained, and so many are still just waiting to give themselves the opportunity to realize the absolute fact, which is that we are all united. We are all connected. Wholeness and balanced vibrations, all is self. And however long it takes you to figure that out is how long you'll be here. And many are waiting, in fact, and we're already gone, meaning that we travel every single day, every single night through our mind and our consciousness, and we build magnificent spaces, real afterlives, which is basically something that you can inhabit right now. And we do that by building here inside of this reality. We store up these treasures. This is all the love, all the glory, all the honor. We bestow that upon the beloved, which is the children of this planet, adults, adepts. These beings that are here, they are close to our hearts. And this is where unity gets you. You start realizing that, hey, this is not about you. This is not even about what you know. This is really about what's going on with everybody else at times, your family, right? So those that have been bestowed that mantle will jump in for their family at any space and time throughout the continuum, wholeness. Also, remember, there are many of those united spaces that exist, and time is not a factor. So, if you ever find yourself in the past, present, or future, and you just, feeling solemn, feeling like nobody is with you, even though you're breathing that beautiful air, even though, you're drinking water and you're acting like you're all alone when you have the most powerful beings with you. And just an ode to how this all continues to play out until we completely hear what we are calling her story, because it has a lot of divine feminine inside of it. Then we will yet to still, as a collective, as a species, start realizing that we're eating from something every single day that's not trying to jump into our face at every single moment and tell us how much it's done and even demand worship from us. Meaning that if you live or if you eat the prana, you live in the pranayama. So everything you're putting in your mouth is coming from people who are generally exploiting it from somewhere here in the earth and then bringing it to you for a little bit of that shekel. Okay. So we're going to keep going with this tonight because, I'm not going to hold you long. Like, I just have something that I really want to come through with because it's going to set the pace for 2025. As you know, we're all the way up. We have big time things happening. We're putting the action behind the word. So, of course, there is a conscious social network done, completely integrated workflows, onboarding, graphics, posts, friends, updates, products, everything, affiliation, anything that you could think of, already there, already done. And actually on its version 3 as far as the skin. And then also we've delved deep into what is the crypto, he who was clowning back then, telling me, "Oh, Seven, you're working with the devil if you're talking about cryptocurrency." I'm sure, sad face emoji right now. Bitcoin is, powering through, and a lot of things are happening, and many are gaining their sovereignty while others are just heavily distracted. So just remember, the mission always is sovereignty, right? So when you talk about the man, that could be anyone, but the mission is total sovereignty. That is for you. Hence the term inner stand. Okay. That means that if you stand inside yourself, you won't fall for anything. This is all about you, not even me. So, what I'm trying to do right now is just move me out of the way so that I can just be that conduit of truth just coming to you. Whatever it is that the universe and all there is saying, this is what my beloved needs to know, then that's what I want to convey to you. That's exactly what I'm here for. I'm here as your narrator in time and outside of time, of course, but making sure that I give you the guidance and the counsel that you need. But in that way, you still make your own decisions, right? But also remember, we do not tire. So I'm sure someone's like, yo, what is 2025? It's like a movie from the future. It's like, oh man, here he comes again. It's like, in a constant, there is no end. There's no sunset for the sun. And so beings will begin to realize that, especially when they start getting weary in the journey, if they don't have their own light. But for those that do, it just keeps getting stronger and stronger every single day. And that also happens for me, especially when I have the opportunity to come in and build with the tribe. As you know, because of the A in action, that means you got to have your stuff in tune and be ready to actually do what is necessary to get things done, which generally is like a long to-do list that most of the talkers, when they look at, just be like, nah, I can't. I'm not going to do all that. But again, that's how we're going to get real action here. So I want to make sure that everybody still understands that this platform, it's not new. All these guys, even that you're seeing right now, I'm they daddy. No, I'm joking, but serious. It's like, go back 10 years, check out, scroll all the way down, and then listen to what was being said. And that is exactly what is being brought forth right now, except some people would be putting their sauce on it. So, hey, it is what it is. So I wanted to say, of course, Happy New Year. We rolled into this, right? And here we are. Like, it's going fast. The days are speeding up even just a little bit more. In my field, sometimes I feel like that even just when you're engaged in society, things speed up. When you move out, as we say, outside of time, you move into nature, things slow down, days are a lot longer. So, while we're in this space, spending what could be 1,000 years in one day. We're actually in this space also to make some major things happen. And so I'm coming in right away with just clearing up some of the misconceptions just about the calendar, because, there's always this thing when I start talking about numbers, and, even dates are going to come up a lot here in a moment, maybe not this bill, but numbers really, so that we can get off of these narratives that people have changed over time and just go back to the numbers and see what the numbers say. There's always this thing where somebody says, "Hey, Seven, but you're using numbers and days from the Gregorian calendar. So that's off. So that means that all of everything that you're talking about generally is off." Okay, so let me clarify that, because you need to go and do your research about why we're on the Gregorian calendar and the calendar that we were on before. And so the calendar we were on before was the Julian calendar. And the Julian calendar, being in play and having really, really bad mathematics, started to get to a point where it was 10 days off. Okay. It was 10 days off when they had to call up old Gregory. "Oh, Gregory, we need this to, we can't, the sun is no longer lining up on Easter for the time on the date." And he was like, "Okay, I will change it. Let me go in and get some better numbers, some 1, some 4, some 2, some 8, some 5, some 7. And then we'll play around a little bit with the February. And in that way, the calendar will be, we won't have to do this again for a long time. It will be on point," okay? Because what we're really dealing with here, regardless of what's fitting around what and what size it is and what shape it is and what dimension it is we're counting revolutions. We're counting anu, which is where they get the term annual from. How many times is it going around? So you don't need a clock to do that. You can look up yourself and you can see the stars moving. And when they make a complete turn, that's an anu. So you don't got to go by anybody's system, but they did align with that system because they needed to align many of these dates, especially with the code. And if the code is not exact, that means that a lot of the extra magic doesn't work. We'll just put it that way. And so understand that. So when we're talking about, hey, we're walking into something new, the King of Spades steps out January 1st. Okay. And that's the vibe and that's the energy. And then as the energy keeps rolling through the seasons, like there's 4 suits. You see what I mean? You get the energies that correspond to those seasons, diamonds, hearts. These are like old calendars for farmers. So in that way, you can measure the temperaments of all of the spirits that are here, because all of the spirits are under the influence of the stars and the sun and all of that. And if you want to argue that, argue what the full moon be doing to people. Argue what a new moon will do. Argue what a hot day would do, or a cold day, or when the sun doesn't come out. So celestial bodies constantly influence all of the elements, the plants, etc. And in this way, because of that influence, and if somebody's just not aware of it at all, and even making conscious, even sometimes detours if they want to be in certain vibes and certain energy, when the whole planetary thing is saying, no, we're going to do this, then you have to be aware of such things. So that's what this is about. These are for us the golden years. You see what I mean? Because we're in a position where not only do we know a lot, but we've also experienced a lot. And that's going to be the biggest demarker here, experience. Because the knowledge is just like going to college. But notice how they don't like to hire people with no experience. Like, yo, you don't got no experience. So, by the way, just a correction on the code in the chat, it's 142. We'll keep going. However, again, the experience actually allows you to turn the knowledge actually into wisdom, which will be through the mistakes of the application. So Sophia, who is wisdom, makes mistakes, and that's how it gets gained. So don't think you're going to beat the game. All will come to know the great truths here in this space. There is no end. Like they say, hey, the race is not given to the quick or to the swift. It's given to the one that endures till the end. And I had to add a little bit on that. And then we found out there is no end. Okay. And this is why they can't figure out where nothing comes from. This is why there's an end to quote unquote man's knowledge. There's a cap. And that cap is there for sure because, wow, Do you really want to give the secret keys and the mysteries to people who are so temperamental that they would just as sure as use it to kill their own brothers and sisters when they're inflated with uncontrollable energy surging through them because they're also being tried for how much energy they can really tolerate? How many degrees can they really tolerate? How much can you really learn before ego activates too much? How much kundalini can you really raise up into before you just, lose control? You see me? How many people will you get following you before eventually you think that, you're the only one, you're the savior to everybody? You see what I mean? So there's all types of trials and tests going on here. So we've already introduced the test book. And if you want to know personally how you're doing, it would be up to you, right? Because you're the only one. When my eyes close, yours don't. You're the only one responsible for you and your being. But don't be surprised if the true value that you have is so much more than you could ever expected. You wouldn't even realize how many people will try to take the energy to try to take your belief and hijack your belief and your connection to the source, try to get in between that. How many different things will go on, even with all the Idolons and the kings and those who still just want to be worshiped, still just want to be praised? You see what I mean? That kind of gluttony, it never stops, right? But what's happening to you? What's going to happen to you in all this? So I suggest for sure in 2025, you would get a lot more serious. Stop playing the game. What 9 is going to do is everything that 9 does. And what that means on a deeper level is you'll understand that 9 does weird things. Like when you pair with any number, it reflects a number back on itself. So 9 plus 5 is 14, 1 plus 4 is 5. So it's like a mirror in that way. So you can best believe a lot of folks that have been out here playing around, all of what they're doing is just going to happen to them. And then if they've been doing great, well, we're great. That's always the beauty of the system. But if what they were doing, they wouldn't want somebody else to do to them, uh-oh. So let's keep going. So I want to start off this way. And first saying that I want to talk to you about, because the running title today was actually True Evolution, getting to the next level. Okay. And one of the things that I really want you to think about is just this analogy. So let's say that I used to play ball, okay, pro, and I was good, right? There was no denying that. I had my day, I got my accolades, and then that day came for me to stop playing. And that day is inevitable for every player. But in reality, how many players actually know when to exit the game? Because, you always have like this climactic point. And if you leave in, then everything. But, if you see, you go all the way down and you're still in there boxing and you get knocked out and you lose your title and all this kind of stuff, it's like, this is a wild way to go. So we know that there's this point where you should always decide when it's time to get to the next stage. Because if you think it's like, oh, well, my day is gone, well, that's a problem with morality. But the reality also is that you got to always plan for your next stage. So you can't deny, though, as a ball player, every time you see the game, knowing how well you played, that you just want to jump in. So I want to tell everybody today that these times that you see me in the future is just really when I want to jump in, play in the arena. But there's a time for you to be the coach, meaning that you got the player, and then at times, some of the coaches, not all of them, but generally some of the coaches should have played before. And in that way, that's the next stage. That's the next upgrade. So I know absolutely that there's a next stage. There's another upgrade even for me. I want to do something even more massive. I've been here in the space, and it's a little strange at times. I'll just say it that way. Like the numbers look a little weird to me. Just all the stuff that I see going on. It's like, okay, are they, hearing what I'm hearing? I thought we was all in the same nucleus. How did that happen? Like, how are we not seeing that? You see what I mean? So in that way, though, at this ripe young age, I definitely would want to get more mature, stay more focused, and keep going with making massive impact on what we discovered. And that also means changing the way it's presented. So I would just be brief with this. I'm going to make movies. And I'm going to do that because I know on my path, I have a gift as a writer. And because of that gift as a writer, that means that I also am an incredible storyteller, and I can put stuff together so much more better than I can in live, which I only really can do live. That fake talking to the camera on something that's going to air in the future, I could never grasp into it. It's just like, it's something that my being doesn't like. I got to be live with everybody. So I know when I'm transmitting, that's what's going through right now. I can't be like doing the recording for the day knowing that I'm going to air it tonight. That's not how it works. All my stuff is live. And so because of this peculiarity, okay, because I understand myself, I can see where at times I'm so fresh on something, it puts people off. As I said before, I'm up there in 2017 talking about this thing called Bitcoin and this road to sovereignty and a final push. I can remember 4 or 5 years ago saying, look at this AI thing is coming. And it's gonna do so many different things. It's gonna be like night and day. And then now here we are. But when it was introduced, even my own peers were like, yo, you off. And in that way, I've not garnished so much love just in general, because I'm not waiting on everybody to accept what it is that I know. I'm just moving through, and I'm keeping a diary. And I'm letting you read this diary. And I'm doing that also because, as I said before, when reaching the peak, the only issue, if there was still one that remained, was what about everybody else? I needed to transmit the code to everybody else just so I wouldn't be like, even in that moment, if I remove myself from the space, will they ever get the code? Is it even right to have something so powerful and then to leave with it? It's like he leaves with the secrets. It's like, what is that? Is it my right to keep it, to not show it to anybody? Just like when we wrote the Code of the Matrix, published it for free. But notice how it changed everything, though. It went viral 3 days later, and the next thing you know, they were like, you, tell us more. You see what I mean? So it's the gestures. What space are you actually moving from when you're doing something? So I said, when I came into this, there was nothing that I actually needed. And that has still remained the same. My cup runneth over. I'm only describing a way of life, though. It's up to you to choose whether or not that you want to live it. But I'm also going to bring these clear proofs to you, because the more that I circulate it through myself, the more that I can stay in truth, because truth is something that it moves in real time. Meaning, because people can't stay true all the time. They're always shifting. They're always changing. Their truth is constantly under test. And so in this process, meaning that when you change and society changes, you're going to have to change things about even how you are and what you think and what you believe. But the truth is something far more deeper than all of that. It's a core. And for those who have disturbed cores, warped cores, and these kind of things, we are the technicians for that. We are the keys that open up those blast doors and say, hey, you know what? We could get in and we can work with this. We can make some changes. I'm going to show you something. Okay? Because listen to this. So in this society, you get real fast that even if you knew 101 psychology, you didn't even tap into spirituality yet, just psychology. I love my psycho-spiritual, which is like a mixture between psychology and spirituality. But just from a psychological level, when you watch how you operate. They'll say, when you watch how people operate, no. When you watch how you operate, what you'll notice is several symptoms of what comes from childhood trauma. And this is rich families, poor families, drug dealers, stock market, hedge fund, big broker. It doesn't not go all the way down to Cabrini Green. It don't matter. Trauma's going on. And it's not even at times you be thinking, hey, it's just a family and my family, yeah, my uncle used to drink and you get into all that. But you don't realize, even as children, us watching the things that we were exposed to, even in these TV shows and these programs, you got to understand as a child, certain things will happen, and that what happens will cause psychological issues, personality flaws and character alterations and all types of stuff is what I'm saying. But remember, the biggest pronounced symptom is a person who is experiencing such things has a tendency not to be able to see it. A person who's doing such things has almost no way to tell that, hey, there's something going on with me. And that's why the beginning of any level of recovery is to first accept that you have some type of issue. And on top of that, we can't just imagine that all of a sudden someone's going to have a psycho-spiritual solution for something that went on unique to us at a certain space in a certain time as a unique being. So this means truly the only technicians are internal for these kind of things. First, externally getting the acknowledgement like, yeah, something's really going on. Like I go at things in a different type of way, and I see that comes from being left alone. Feeling like I need to prove myself, being picked last on the team, not getting in with the crowd, going to jail, gang banging, listening to crazy music. You see what I mean? So all types of things, not having my back straight. You see what I mean? The maintenance on the vehicle is already high. In the books that we're getting, even in the beginning, to teach us, they don't teach us about diet. They don't teach us about the thing. They don't teach us about the earth, the energy even moving through there. None of that. And then somehow people have arrived in the future imagining that none of that even matters, that the state that they're living in right now is so clear that every judgment that they make and everything that they think is going on is exactly the truth. And thus, that's why they live in the illusion. There is a world overlaid over the top of this one, embedded in this one, that is more alive than this one. And if you had for one moment just taken an opportunity and stopped believing everybody else, especially in some dogma, and just open your third eye for a moment, however that happened, you would see it. And at that point, you would reach the end of where all the religions are going. Meaning that you have people today still haven't had yet a third eye experience. So in that way, what is being described in their religion is already available, but the journey continues. Just because you open your third eye and you see the active reality as it truly is, and the overlaying fields and the frequencies and the feeling of being unified with everything, that doesn't mean that you don't come back in and actually grind with all the rest of us. And that becomes like anticlimactic. That's why a lot of people, they get into depression. Like once they've been, they've tasted the nectar, and then they leave the reality, and then they feel all this interconnectedness and all this love, and then they land back into reality, and somebody's coming at you with a sword. They don't understand it. This is what happened to the hippies. So the term today that I used was culture shock. I want to make sure that I define that word for you, okay? A culture shock is a normal process. It's a normal, okay? This means it happens all the time. It's a normal process that occurs when people move to a new culture and then they experience feelings of confusion, uncertainty, or anxiety. It can happen when people travel abroad, study abroad, move to a new city, or go on vacation. But I have to add to that because it also happens when you're introduced to different spiritual systems. There could be a culture shock even there. I even feel like that in this last 16 years, it was like this push to take global consciousness to that next stage. It was like something that we were seeing form and set itself up. Teachers were coming in, teaching about different things, building to a certain point others. Now it almost seems like that thing is just like, because as we were building higher and higher and higher, the foundation, remember, the original thing about all this is sovereignty. So this means that you're working on your own foundation. And so this means that if you treat advanced consciousness like you treat religion, this is going to be a problem. So some people rolled right into this, what they was calling New Age movement, but they roll right in with the same way that they treat the religions and the church and the Islam and all that. Vainly reciting, calling on it when something happens wrong, feeling bad all the time, pretty much, because the body is prone to even thinking and feeling ways in which it's talked about that it shouldn't. So in the end, all of this, it added up. And now the world finds itself, and even the conscious community self finds itself in a weird space, because there are many who sojourn, and when they went out, they look back, such as myself, and we realized that we had went out so far that we could no longer see the island anymore. So that meant that we had to keep going with the awareness that we knew that there was something else. There was a unity. And we found it. But many went out in the ocean, and then when the place that they came from started to become too small, where they couldn't see it anymore, meaning they were letting go of those old beliefs, and they were about to build a new foundation. But to do that, you must, you need to lay the threshing floor. You need to clear all this out. You need to level all of this. But they got too scared out there in the dark water with no light. No belief in oneself. No putting in the real practice, the real meditation, the real introspection to really see self, work with self, nourish self, love self. So you can build a new foundation. So because they treated it basically like a religion, they had to head back because the waters for them look troubled. When they see the future, all they can see is the end, because it's the end of them. There is no end. So what I'm saying is that they started feeling inside, because you can't just say what you think you are. You have to be it. And that's what I'm saying about this is why you'll see mass exoduses even back to the religion, because or the religions, the cages, because you had people that were playing anyway. They were vainly reciting. They were doing the same thing, thinking that they were going to somehow fool everybody. And now they back in, oh, praise. I realize after watching the BC and the WH interview that I want to give my life back to Christ. What? And then you go check the comment and it's a bot. I'm like, oh, okay, I see the kind of game we're playing now. Y'all just gonna try to cheat for souls. See, the thing is that, listen, notice how all of this now, this herd consciousness and how it can be shifted easy. A couple things happen in the field of metaphysics that we're all aware of, including our brother Terrence hitting Rogan, and then Wiseman or whoever, Weinstein, whoever, come in behind him, try to make him look like a fool and a charlatan. Then another little situation happening. Somebody just sitting there like they blanked out. And then now all of the community is like focused on this for a minute, like it's a Diddy event. But then after a couple clicks of the dish, the algorithm seems to continuously serve up pro-Christian propaganda. Even some of them old heads that know how to mix in a little bit of, we're all electrical fields, but we're in the body of Jesus. You see what I mean? So then the algorithm immediately gets flooded with this content, and then people start being like, it's a sign. Wow. A foundation is to not be weak. See, this is what it all is. This is the test from the ancestors, period. Is like, do you know who you are? Do you not just realize we just went over thousands and thousand years at least? Check out this, ancient and modern Britons, okay? So you can see the world that King James pulled up to with the Picts and the Gypsies and the tents and and somebody was even in the comments trying to refute what was going on. And it's like, there are volumes. These books are thick about what actually has been going on with kings trying to control all these wayward people, but first coming in with the sword first. Like now, see, we're living in a time where people will argue with you about it. There used to be a time where they would kill you. They come with the sword, okay? This is a time that, people think they left those times now, when still they out there bombing and blowing up people under another pretense. What you think is another pretense. And this is the ode to the wise. Do you think that what you're seeing on TV and what you're seeing on the news, even what they're saying they're reporting, is really what's going on? Do you think they would tell you what's really going on? They think that you're a baby. And they know because they made everybody a baby with them crazy ass cartoons, being super spoiled, not really going out and doing things for yourself, like figuring out how hard it is to really feed yourself food, not going to a box store like Walmart to pick up your latest religion, because that's what these religions are so basic. They're like the Walmart product of religion. You could just grab it right off the shelf when you feel like that you need one. But when you get into true metaphysics and the true occultism, it doesn't stand for any of that. It's your grandmother's house. It's where everything is actually serious. It's where you take your shoes off. It's where you speak when you're spoken to. And you know that vibe and you know that energy exists. But as I said, this reality is so disrespectful. It's sitting over here wandering after a man when you aren't even looking at what your mother has been doing. Not only in the mother in the physical realities, but also the mothers that nourish through nature, still getting you water and still getting you cleanliness, still on the journey, on the wisdom, on the Sophia. So I want to say this also, that it takes a lot to truly care about someone else. It takes a lot also to care about someone else's race. A lot of times we take this for granted, even in being a part of United. Like, many of us have come to love each other for who we are and stop seeing, all these different boundaries and barriers. While in different parts of the world, they're even fighting with neighboring tribes that are clearly their own brother and sister. So you can see even the progression of consciousness is what I'm saying. How much are some people progressing more towards unity, and how much are some people progressing more towards division? Because we know absolutely that the force that is within this world that keeps us constantly quarreling is always suggesting some level of division. This starts with an idea like, you're the chosen one, they're not. It was her great mother that I loved, the other one I hated. Esau, I hated. You see what I mean? This kind of dichotomy. But again, you can play the game, but in the end of the game, the king and the pawn go back in the same box. If you want to transcend all of this, that's what all this is for. That's what these portals are still open for. Clear and pure, all about you, not everybody else. So remember, this algorithm of manipulation is also, we'll leave that there. The algorithm of manipulation, just so you understand that it only takes a few clicks for a person to start seeing certain things that they think are coincidental, listening to things that are put together very well. And if they have no foundation, and one of the men versus the mission that they put on the pedestal happens to get knocked, they're easily running back to where they were at before. And this is not it. You won't make it like that anyway. The test, it's not for those kind of beings. You need to repeat a few times. Shelter, where they tell them, shelter in place. Hold your position. You're not good on any fronts right now. But for those who have inherited the mighty, it's crazy. Even we had the whole thing about Jabbar. Then Buddy wouldn't blew us so down. It didn't Jabbar. You see what I mean? It's just like, you can't make this stuff up. So we don't. Look at this. Here's where it's going to throw a lot of people off. The whole thing about the Christ myth. And it's because when you don't have a third eye and you don't have much awareness of spirituality, you also insist that there is even no spiritual world because you've never experienced it. You only have faith about it. And in that's where the hijack takes place. It takes place because there is another reality that most cannot see. So you got to be able to feel it. You got to be able to feel what's going on. And in this process, you start realizing, especially if you're studied, it's just so. You know how they be doing that with the money now? Oh, this is how it should be, okay? When you're studied, wait, no, my monitors to cut back on here. One of my monitors went off. Here it comes. Let's give it a moment. You realize that the power in itself of spirits anyway is in belief and in consecration. So if everyone starts to believe in something and then they consecrate it into an image, that brings it or gives it some type of life. And this is what the Jesuits were really, really aware of. They understood this. This is like the basics of what you would call paganism. That's pagan, the family of Pa or Pater versus Magan or Magan. You see what I mean? So the reality to all of this is that when we're talking about occult powers, you can't say anymore that this Idolon Jesus does not exist. And that's what's going to trip people up real fast. I saw him. He talked to me. He came and saved me. Because it was like basic law of attraction type stuff, silly. If billions of people believed in it, then it would begin to manifest. And if it could be controlled, this is what a brand is. This is why the number one agency that creates this Target logo and creates all the logos for Circle K and all this kind of stuff, they're called Pentagram. And it's built on that knowledge that when you create a crest or a logo, as they call it, the logos, and you could get words around it, you can get a theme around it, you can even try to incorporate a story around it, and then you get more and more people to believe in it, it actually becomes real. It exists. It animates. But also the magic in itself is a bit twisted because it's always founded on lies. It actually takes the harnessing of other people's energy in order to power that projection. And if that projection is not for them, then they just become the particles in which that projection is made up of. And what I mean by not for them is that there's no way you can sit at all as an adept and look at a man of any color and imagine that you are looking at the only son of the creator of the universe. Wow. For that to go over everybody's head, that's what makes it, it's not a debate. How do you debate that? How do you debate common sense? People are expecting to find that the creator of all there is a humanoid. This is a blondie. Good luck in there. You're not going to see what you think you're going to see. You're not going to see a man. There are too many other different types of life forms here. And then when you take all of the life forms, 365, and you put them together, now you're kind of looking at it. And if you think that you can stand in its face and live, if you think you could put a he and even a she on it, that's your limitation. Now, of course, we're going to do some baby steps. You're going to be with the Lord, and you're going to be with the barons, and you're going to be with the dukes, and you're going to be with the duchies, because that's where all those terms come from. Like, they're just now realizing, like, we're moving slow. People are already putting together, hey, America is really Egypt. You know, shout out to UBTV, boy, you know, when, you know, he comes back sometimes and, yeah, debate him. I read all his stuff across with ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was only verified at 100%. America was Egypt. So this also still, you got to go further. Well, when those people were leaving Egypt and they went over, where did they go? Could that be those people who left Egypt and went to Scotland? If we're not thinking that Egypt is over where it is now, but hey, I won't even get into this right now, but your entire history doesn't include her story. So you're only getting half. And you're making at times decisions based on only having half of the truth. And at the end of the day, a lot of times, man, that's why I just stay clear of the agents and the NPCs. Can you really blame them if they only have half of the truth? Like, what are they supposed to function on? Like, they gotta stay at some point solid and say, this is what I believe in. So this is why I will admit it's a perilous journey to leave a dogma and then think that you're going to play out there now that you're responsible for your soul in your own consciousness at that stage. There's no more to refer to, no more evangels to hang on to and broker with. And then you're still having moral issues. You're still demented in certain ways, still fractured, still hurt, still damaged. You see what I mean? And then now you don't have any kind of faith or no kind of belief. You see, so people are just getting along with these Walmart religious snacks. But then time draws nigh, meaning that it's all still a divine timing and alignment. So at a certain point, everything must be revealed. And we're in those times. Great. So, as I said before, the name is Sword, okay? The Stewart family. This is why so many quote unquote black people are hooked on the Christianity, because they were doing it over there in Great Britain, in London, in the bourgeoisie. Amen. Kiss my ring. Kiss the ring of the king. You know, I represent the king of the kings. We all kings. You ain't. This was the vibe for real. People act like this is like a user-friendly, they love everything. No, they come with the sword. They came to divide. People die every day still right now because of this ignorance. The world is being rent asunder, and at the foundation, there is these machinations of religious roots. And people be like, no, it's the devil. No, it's the religion. The religion has them still stuck in a secular, it's all about me. And if you don't do what I say, like a spoiled kid, if you don't do what I say, then my daddy is going to beat your daddy. Really? So I have to just say this as we taper off. If you have any questions, you could drop a Q, and then you can put the question in the chat. I'll look to address it here in this next 15 minutes. What I mainly want to bring forth is just that awareness that we're progressing as a unity. We're digressing when we're divided. If someone brings division and ideas of division, then it's very difficult to teach them unity. It's something that they have to experience. And you experience unity because you're tired of being in division. And once you start to realize, and wake up and see the common sense, once you start to realize that, oh, wow, I'm being invited in to all there is, because now I'm letting go of my divisive ideas. You can see why there's only two spaces. There's the world of the divided, Humpty Dumpty, who can't put itself back together again, always looking for how it's special and how it's different than everybody else, but not seeing any of the commonalities going on here, not to mention treating everybody like family for real. Jumping on a team. It's like you still see that old, because we're not too far off of it. But remember, I told you that it was a point where men, not only were they testing metal with each other, like the ruler was always the strongest, but there was also like, you literally had to worry about your village being sacked and your things being taken and something going on because the men were just running around and they were stronger. You see what I mean? So it becomes like this culture, this warlike culture, because that's what this is we're in now. Everybody wants to battle and everybody wants to go to war and they want to fight, right? Women don't participate in this kind of thing. And this is what I was saying. You think it would be obvious to realize that the divine feminine is the force that sustains worlds, and that the divine masculine, the undivine masculine is the one that tears it up. And because that just happens in every single everyday life. So again, when you get these bands of men, they're like, yeah, I'm coming with the sword. I represent this. Yeah, every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess. They gravitate towards that. It feeds something from a long time ago that's been doing it. Mothers and brothers have died. People have killed the tribe's mothers of other mothers, and they pissed. So you're talking about skirmishes that don't end easily at all, where someone is saying, you know what, I forgive you. These wars that are even going on right now, there wasn't a time really where it wasn't a rearmament happening from other sides that had just finished getting their ass whooped. And they were crawling out of the sludge. But you got to realize this. As we move forward, the laws of thermodynamics are being changed. And what this means is that, see, before, when we fought conventional wars for sure, and we used up all this oil, this world was running on this oil, it was a real technology. So the oil technology and the engines, the jet engines and the planes, remember the oil is jet fuel, rocket fuel. This is the conventional warfare. But at the end of the day, there's only so much explosion that can really happen from these kind of mixtures. So let me kick it up a notch. Uranium. So then uranium becomes the new thing. The yield on something nuclear is so much more higher than something combustion from oil. We power our entire industry from the seaboard all the way from California all the way to New York on nuclear power. We power all our factories and all of our industry for years, harnessing this power. And we also use it as a weapon. I'm saying we because I'm talking about the United States. And then now others started getting theirs too. So then it became about, hey, you know what? This is not a weapon, according to the law of thermodynamics, that it doesn't need to be like super huge. It could be small and do a lot of damage. We need to regulate this. You start regulating it. Some countries still have them. Now they're at that point where they're like, yo, I think I'm going to use mine. But even before that happens, another more powerful technology comes, AI. So if you were thinking that it was a situation with the nuclear, then when you're seeing AI, you got then even smaller companies, because each time, what I'm trying to get you to see is each time someone that has been left behind, someone who was not even in the race of combat, each time there was an upgrade, somehow they start slipping in. So now even with the latest upgrade with AI, you got countries that were not even being thought of. But now that they have AI, they're rapidly stepping back into the stage because they're actually able to upgrade their knowledge, upgrade their intelligence, upgrade their factories, and upgrade their resources. You see what I mean? So in this world, what you have to realize with all these big things happening is you got to realize where you're at in all of this. Are you a child, lonely, waiting for a male figure to return home? Do we even reject the feminine role in society? Just like, as I said, someone that is relieved by a shaman will often even attack that shaman just because they're the only person that's there. Do we not also see that in the end of something, which is but the beginning, that it's always run down and raggedy? Have we become the kind of people that only judges everyone based on when they're in their golden age, but when they start to falter, now they're our enemy? This is the same generation that doesn't look out for its ancestors, doesn't look out for its elders, don't care about grandma, don't care about grandpa, great-great-grand. And people can't realize that that is the same thing that on a spiritual level is actually happening, that is creating the disconnect. Because we're not looking for great-great-great-grandmother and great-great-great-grandfather as far as in our hearts, and then we're over here wandering after some fictitious idea. Do people actually think that there's a mansion in the sky where everybody is going to stay? How big is your bedroom? Oh, I'm going to have a mansion. So everybody's going to have mansions. Is there toilets in the mansion? Do you see how idiotic? But again, common sense is not common. So it's easy again. The easy route is the opium of the masses. Tell them everything they want to hear. It's like a Donald Trump. Tell them everything they want to hear. Oh, am I going to get this? Yeah, you're going to get this. Am I special? Yeah, I'm special. But you need to do this. And that's the twist in all this. Because it could be so innocent if it was just that. But no, you have people that speak for this church. And they tell you what is going to be done and what you're going to believe, who you're going to love, who you're going to hate, what is the truth, what is a lie. Versus allowing you, even with guidance, to go into this experience, to see for yourself where it will truly matter so that it can create a foundation for you. But see, this is the play. This is the play on the souls. Because you realize as long as they have knuckleheads to animate their projections and to keep their ghost god Agatha Daemons alive, especially Abrasax, then the chief of demons, which is the one who has the keys to hell, if you go and read the book again, will continue to hold those three keys and keep all of the people still wrapped up in belief rather than knowing, in the confinement, under the hand, under dominion, below the lowered or the lowest star. So obviously you can see why it would be very powerful to rise up. I also want to mention, so we've deployed. We will continue this mission to bring advanced awareness to the world in all languages. In these times, you can clearly see that it is becoming more and more obscure. These higher truths, it's a serious thing. Like, there's knowledge that we know, there's pictures that we have, that in the event that these images and these things are lost, we can pretty much see that the society will not have really any ways of bringing this stuff back. Meaning that there are higher truths. Like even if I just open up this folder, let me see here. And then I'm going to go ahead and check the chat, and then we're going to wind down here. Let me see here. There we go. We go in here one time, and I seen a lot of brothers, well read, and also continuing to always like, okay, here we go. So, there's so much knowledge circulating still from people that are just creating screenshots real quick. They'll screenshot something, be like, yo, it's right here. They'll grab one of these old books off of archive.org and show something that completely changes the perspective of how you think things are going on. For instance, the brother over at UBTV was like, yo, still peep out though that Strabo and Eratosthenes, when creating the authorized maps being used in that time, had no record at all of America. They didn't even know it exists. And that's why I was saying, like, it was an enchanted realm. That's what they called it. It was hidden. These great Americas. And, where all of this, like I said, that when you think about the coast of California, when you think about even some of the stories about how the beach looked and gyms on the beach, the Amazon, all this, none of this stuff is on the map. So it's like these realms always remained hidden in the world that we're in today. It was all Skythea back then. You see what I mean? Most of it. And so this is again where it's like, if we're going to truly educate ourselves, there would be so many different things that you can look at, especially now with AI, and realize it's impossible. It's impossible for 1 million people, which according to the count, that was how many Israelites left Egypt, somewhere around 600,000. It's impossible for that many people to leave any territory like Egypt in that time and there not be a record. Not to mention all the death that were supposed to happen too. Not to mention trying to survive, even with a God in a desert with 1 million people. I guess that would surmount to why nobody made it out the desert. But I'm saying to actually believe and adapt to these kind of things, it's like playing you as a fool. And this is where the whole thing starts changing within the consciousness. Because if a person starts to believe like this, it's like still believing in Santa Claus and all this. And then now you got these worlds of real men, brutes. They steal souls. They'll steal a person's whole life, have that person working in a factory with mud. You know what I mean? Like they talk about the Titanic, right? In the boat, they had them down there, all the Scottish men. They had them down there partying like it was a good time. It wasn't no good time going on in the bottom of the boat, shoveling big ass steam engines for wealthy oligarchs on their way to their demise. And then also people are not even thinking about, do you know how many of the quote unquote workers and the servants of those people also were gone that night? That can't tell none of the stories of what really happened. And that's what I'm saying. Our society, it can't be true because they don't stand on truth. They've never revealed truth to anybody. And then somehow you have masses and swarms of people imagining that, but in some stroke of luck, there is this one story in this one book that has remained untouched. And then the same people that gave him the book is the same people that actually gave him the laws, the rules, the sword, took their land, took their family, took everything, and it was all racist. That's what happens psychologically. And that's why I say we don't even have to go spiritual. That's what happens psychologically generations later when it's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. Yes. What do you want me to say? Right? When you've watched your mother die for refusing to remove herself from her awareness of her ancestors, when they already chatting with the ancestors, and the ancestors are already saying, yo, it's time to exit the matrix. They coming, you know what I mean? Like first, they hold on to their life. They're like, look, I don't want to die. I believe. All right, we're coming to baptize you right now. You're going to be baptized. You see what I mean? And then you got new systems that come through, new Idolons, new kings, and it serves perfect. That's why they even use Christianity and Freemasonry. It's perfect. You've already accepted the hierarchy. You've already put yourself in a certain, you're already easy to manipulate. You already everything. You're perfect recruiting ground for the force that continues to smash its foot in humanity's face. Facts. You got these people over here acting like we all didn't get the transmission that the UN was created by Israel. We all know this. For better or for worse, the books are there. But then they over there talking about, why isn't the UN doing anything about Israel? What world are you living in? Go get a Jim Mars book already. But then what most people can't do is they can't build collective knowledge. So when you know that, it's like, okay, check. They moving like that. They playing chess. They already knew 15, what is it now? It's like, what, 20 years since they set it up. Even 30 years somewhere in there since they commissioned it. Since the room was built by Nicky Rourke and they had the scythe and all that stuff in the meditation room and all that kind of stuff. Now we're here and it's like nobody has that information anymore. You got grown people who are saying that they're educated and that they know everything about politics and law, sending treaties and stuff to the UN like they don't even have this information. Like, what do you better stop that. You're basically telling them on yourself. You're sending them letters. And you believe what they believe in. You're playing in their sanctum so they can take you out. And that's another thing that people need to start realizing. When you jump into that hoax bag, it makes you vulnerable because you're accepting that. It's like a person who could be hypnotized. You gotta accept that you're gonna be hypnotized first. So that's what happened to, we won't say his name. The moment you start saying, hey, yeah, he existed, but he did this and he did that and he did, whoa. No, he didn't exist. Not in the way humans exist. He is an Idolon. And like I said, don't be surprised if you find a whole slew of them, a billion of them, like, great. Now we know he's still an Idolon. We worship the Idolon because that's how they wander all the time astray like that. They wandered after Saul. They wandered after the king, if you may. They could not see the light within themselves. For us, our culture is spirituality. The study of spirits to actually realize what happens after death. That's what the pyramids were for. We could see them further than you could see in the distance a light, always lit. And you knew if someone had died, then you went to that place, you would find not only them, but also what happens after death. This is the circuit. You see what I mean? This is what was built here in this space on Earth in its golden age, was total enlightenment where the planet was in tune. The planet chakras didn't have these same dudes that you believe in so much, toting the flag and the sword and all this kind of stuff that were the same ones that tore up all the rivers, poisoned the waters, dried up the land, and then come back and told everybody that the Lord did it. What's happening to us? I'm breaking out. I don't know what's happening. Oh, you must have done wrong by the Lord. Smash yourself and do penance. You got to realize, especially if you can relate that somehow your ancestors were caught up in this in a few generations, how that will play out today in your DNA and what you would automatically just immediately be like, yeah, that's truth. I'm going to file in there. But I'm telling you from the perspective of being in there, though, and that's where we will conclude today, is that I'm not that person over here acting like I didn't know what went on in Christianity because I wasn't a Christian. I read the Bible 3 times. I wasn't interested in being a pastor. I was interested in being a prophet. I wanted to know where the power was, where the Holy Ghost is, where the Spirit moves, and what does hallelujah really do, and what are tongues really saying, and what is that voice 4 layers back in your mind in which the devil cannot hear it. You see what I mean? So these things that I'm explaining to you, it came from being on the astral plane, seeing the army of the Lord totally vanquish very innocent beings and hurt other souls and even command you to go and do it too and say, yeah, it's for these gods, which are these Gothic kings. You see what I mean? A soldier in the army of the Lord. Okay. And then you play with this right now, like this is Call of Duty, or like this is some kind of fictitious shenanigan until your soul is reaved because you were just an underling inside the whole thing, never even realizing the obvious of the wool that was being pulled over your eye, when the very scripture says there will be one who comes after me and he will say he is me, but I am not him. And this is just strictly a reference that Christ truly, or the charisma, is the Kundalini for sure. And when you raise it up to the place of Golgotha, that I will be one. And when it's one, the superior brachium, the real Jesus on the cross, on the back of your damn head will light up. And it will be at that moment that you will be one. And the road will be straight and narrow to travel. And it has nothing to do with any kind of exoteric, external visualizations. But remember, the story has something for children and it has something for old men. It has Proverbs and it has Mary had a little lamb. So you would have to gird yourself tight, because whatever you think it is what you're going to see. That's the kind of magic we're talking about here. Whatever it is that your ultimate belief is, you're going to encounter that. So if you believe that your God is terrible, if you believe your God is fearful, that he will slay and he kills and he destroys at will, and he hates even some of his children, and you just keep stacking all that up, and then you put that in with a nice cocktail of daddy wasn't home, or mommy was abused, and you try to see the toxic brew that comes out of that, and you act like that can actually stand in the face of the truth, my friends, we have a longer journey, but don't worry. We'll continue to sojourn, meaning that it's small things. Meaning just to be here and be in the space and encourage people to do what should be obvious is small things. Now it's also time to really actually, as I said, people need to get serious. It's like reflecting on the knowledge for a moment, taking the time for yourself, getting a real 360 going on, get your vitamins together. It's like understand how the body works with chain reactions with things like magnesium, vitamin D, and these kind of things that you need. I just did a recent build on this, so that you can understand that your destituteness and at times your feeling of being depressed and the need of something could definitely come from your mineral deficiency and lack of sunlight. And that in these vulnerable states where you're constantly being depleted is when the mind is in itself weak, because it is the one also eating a lot of the foods and the nutrients and things that you're taking. You'd be surprised how much the fluids and things in the brain needs of the nutrients and minerals in your body. And then when there's none, stinking thinking. So I'm going to look at the chat. I think I've elaborated a bit today. I got some things, like I said, this year that I'm looking forward to bringing in. Also, for everybody that's in the space and knows what's happening, also know that we have deployed Sybil here on the App Store. And as I said before, we're just gearing up on this side, because a while ago, I was always like, until we can get inside that notification area in the phone, though, we're still on somewhat of an uphill. Until we can get consciousness in every single language in the world, at least the popular languages, we're still on the uphill. So again, when these forces come through like AI, and again, they're throwing it under the bus, but then they'll be going to get a college degree in a few years after they've made you late. In these points, you see the big upliftment, because anything that has power is just now going to be about the user of that power. Are they going to abuse it? So in this, we took AI, we trained it on all of the knowledge that was already bona fide. It was in the blueprint. And then we deployed something that can push that knowledge back in any language. And we constantly give it more and more knowledge. And then we put a lot of other stuff in it, like it makes incredible pictures. You can see autonomous conversations going on with strong metaphysical AI, having conversations about things that we may have not necessarily thought about and got to a point of pondering. Just free flow. It also does things like tell stories, where you could put a short story in and then you can get the images for your story. So this is what we're doing on a constructive level to say, but we're still going to need a curriculum. I also wanted to mention once again that because I've gone into this awareness of how do you truly get to that next stage of making a big impact, and then realizing, hey, a lot of this comes from being able to tell stories, right? Like think about like even these people again in these traditions, these religious dogmas, they jump into these movie theaters all the time, right? And they watch all this stuff. They're not supposed to, but they watch all of this stuff. And then they're impacted by it in a certain way when they leave. They believe, that they're the Flash or Deadpool. No, I'm joking, but serious. It's like there's that impact. And there's really no limit to who goes and watch these things. Like, for instance, like Elon Musk watches movies, right? Like you can't deny that he's watched movies. The president watches movies. Somebody in the streets watches movies. Somebody in another country watches movies. So it's a medium in which if you push something through, you have that much more of an opportunity of getting that message out, especially if you're a good storyteller. And if you've already been working on your spiritual capacity and abilities, you are really great in your imagination anyway. You have the ability to see and to feel the story through and through. And there's something special with that. And you got to remember that while it gets downplayed right now, we've never had so much control over an image. To be able to take it without an illustrator or somebody that you got to pay and go back through several reiterations with, we've never had anything like that in our hands. So we could never even fathom how to get over the barrier to entry of entry into that space. Now, that is also a thing of the past. So I want to make sure that everybody still here is aware that we did the masterclass. The masterclass is available. This is AI Film and Art Masterclass. I also talk about how, when it comes to pushing anything that you have as a product, a part of your brand, etc., being able to create the aesthetics around that is key. It's crucial to transmit your message, your feel. So I not only train how to get just incredible images, but also sources for those images if you don't want to create them yourself, but also how to train your own image into the system so that you can create an infinite amount of content in your likeness. And then I also show how to do that with your product. So you can combine yourself with your product. So if you want to be in that scene or in that runway or in that palace with your product holding it, I show all how to do there in photorealistic likeness. See what I mean? So what that does is, again, it removes the barrier to entry for you to actually allow your creativity to flow and then get your message out there and actually allow some of this desperation, because that's what's happening now. People are getting really desperate. But when they see others, like, okay, wait, there's a flow here. There's something going on. There's something masterful happening. People are paying attention. And this is the time for your creations to flow through. So I have a couple questions here. So I'm just going to jump into this real quick. And as I said before, if you have, because I'm just going to scroll through. I'm actually going to go to YouTube here because the scroll is a little bit more easier. And so if you have some questions now, because I know it's like, I made my question come earlier. So I'm scrolling up to see. Oh, okay. Here's a good question. What do you do when DMT doesn't work anymore? See, that is not the point. Meaning that the point is not to continuously go on DMT over and over again. DMT, you could go on your journeys. Like I've been on over 100 journeys, but I haven't been on a journey probably in like what, a year and a half, 2 years, even longer, because it's not calling me. See what I mean? Like this is a real thing. There's a feeling here. So now I was going through those journeys and I was experiencing nature and experiencing all those things. It was perfect, especially for the time that I was in. And then it was a time where I had leveled up. It's like, okay, you've seen it all. You'll be seeing more of it when you move on. You understand that this is the space that you go into when you quote unquote die. But in that also, we need you here. Be here now. Because the more you keep leaving and the more you keep going, you start to detach from this. A big part of spirituality and spiritual teachings is to detach from physicality, to not get tapped into, too many attachments and all those different things that go on in the world. But the thing is that we don't just live in a spiritual reality. We live in a spiritual reality and we live in a physical reality, and that is the marriage. That is the marriage, is flesh and spirit. They're in a communion. That's what the body is. And it's combustible, so it's constantly eating itself. And in this way, and in this combustion, in this conflict, this is how we even create. We produce. So it's a masterful lesson. But it is about understanding how to neutralize opposites. That's the highest level of the teaching. You realize how to get through the conflictive thoughts in the mind and the conflictive chambers within the chakra centers. And each time the Kundalini flows into a new chakra center, you're aware of certain things. You know what I mean? You have a tendency to even believe that that's the only thing going on when you have that center alone activated. So it's a journey, and you're climbing your spine literally. But then in the process, though, you realize, like I said, as you get, and they say when I was a child, I did childish things, but when I became a man, I put childish things away, or something like that, right? But it's like realizing when it's time to progress, and it's like, okay, I get what goes on with the third eye. I get that there's no reason even to have feelings like you want to leave the world, because we're all going to be leaving. There's no reason to rush it. You see what I mean? And so it's really about how much can you do while you're here? How many can you help? How many can you assist? And if there's any idea of building up treasures in heaven, or what we just call space credits, it centers around actually bringing in balance into this space and actually being compassionate and wise with the beings that are also here. And when I say wise, I'm also saying that you don't got to be a fool with people and try to make them like you and accept what it is that they're doing. That's not helping them. You see what I mean? So that's what these journeys and that's what these missions are really about. So that was a great question. So the next question here, let's just kind of show that up on the screen. And then I'm going to keep scrolling up just a little bit before I go back into, okay, here we go. AI agents, what's my take? Man, it's funny that I always think about how sometimes in society we do overrate things a bit early, because there's this AI agents, they're going to take over, right? And in many ways, all AI agents is when you have a specific process and you can allow the AI to complete that process and then pass that on to another AI. And so it can continue the process that it specializes in. And when many of the platforms like Claude start blowing up, because Claude just kind of had that quick surge because it was just the responses were really real. It was because of that they started using agents versus just using that one direct model. And then, of course, OpenAI was already in clutch with what they had. They may even be the same company, but the reality is that then they came in with a thinking model. And all thinking models really are multiple agents where each agent, because it is better to regulate the system this way, each agent specializes in just one thing. And in that way, it could just pass off and it goes on from there. And then you can actually silo whatever it is that you're trying to get done without having some kind of hallucination or confusion take place within the process, because you're using one model to complete several tasks, right? But the game changer of it is slated when we really see, when a new technology comes out, it's always the same thing. Like even with nuclear technology, we needed to then build the proper plants, power lines, infrastructure, and everything to be able to harness the power. So the places that it came to first, of course, they took off, they had light, you know, they could run heavy industrial equipment, et cetera, and it worked. But there were still places that were using coal fire plants and all that, you know, so it's always in that way. The infrastructure has to be upgraded in order for the technology to fully be useful. And in certain ways, and this is coming, and I've seen some stuff, when the computer takes over the mouse, which they have some stuff that does this now and does it very well, so you know it's coming fast, understands exactly what's on the screen, which is what Vision does, and also OpenAI's terminal system does, and then starts to be able to take over the computer and operate as if the human would be operating, especially when it's going through sites. And, you know, they try to demo this out all the time with booking a vacation. You know, it's like, okay, it's going to book a vacation. But that same level of technology where it could go in and complete all of those steps, that's the AI agent's game changer. And the reason why it's in the background right now is because only, you know, kind of like our tech heads, code heads, and people who are like really already in it have their system already in terminals plugged in to the AI agent, and the AI agent is just using their computer just like I just explained, versus an out of the box third party nice UI. You get it, you install it, and then now you click a few buttons and you actually understand what it's going to do. You see what I mean? That version is not here. The other version is already being used exclusively. Let's keep going with it. Let's keep going with it. Let me see where I'm at with time. Okay, yeah. I can taper off here in just a second. Let me give you a couple more. I'm gonna scroll back down. Will I become wealthy using WealthyBot? You know, if there was a one solution for wealth, I definitely would say that, you know, show it to me, because generally what you have to do to become wealthy is, first of all, understand money, right? Because there's no system, if you don't put time and you don't put some thought into it, that is all of a sudden going to be like a genie in a bottle and then make you wealthy, right? So in many ways, though, what we teach at WealthyBot, because it's a system that you can use for free and you can even start a simulator, is your learning process and how well it works. So if you start learning how to trade cryptocurrency or how to use systems that are watching certain coins and things like what we've developed inside the system, you will be able to see if it's making profit for you. But even weak hands, you know, it's always the weakness. Weak hands could completely destroy a future in a moment just by closing a position that should have stayed open. So there are many people that bought Bitcoin at 60,000 and sold it at 15 for then it to go to 98, right? All within like a year and a half time span. And so there's a form to this. I wouldn't advise anything that seems like, hey, this is just going to be like, it's going to make me rich. It's like, nah, man, it's the law of thermodynamics. This is what I keep trying to explain. Anytime that you're trying to break that or humanity's trying to break that, it always spells trouble. What is the law of thermodynamics? It's like when one being or one person tries to take all of the energy of everybody else and does not put back out that same amount of energy or more than it's been given. You see what I mean? So this is like gas, right? Like when you put it in your car, only 40% of the power of that gasoline is actually being used. So you never get back 100% of what that gas can give you. So that's a law that applies to many things. And in our society, we've constantly flirted with this idea of things like fusion, things like perpetual energy. And it is embedded within even our culture, an idea that one person can be like a multi-billionaire while everybody else is poor, and somehow that doesn't affect them. Somehow it's not easily seen that if you're using money as a denote, if you're not using money, if you're using money to denote the value and the energy of something, that means if a person has a lot of it, then they have everybody's energy per capita, et cetera, per unit. You see what I mean? And so with all that energy already invested into one person, like Saint Elon, if you may, because that's where all this is really going and coming from. So it's like, if you have, well, not all of it, you know, but I'm saying there's major players in this, but if all that is concentrated in that one person, it does mean that billions are going to be there without nothing. And that also comes even from recognition. right? Like when one person is, they're the one person everybody knows, and but then you got kids that nobody ever even thinks of. This is how the distribution of that happens. So this society was already put together. This world was already put together to obey the law of thermodynamics. And that just meant that everybody that came into the matrix, that you were given a unique gift. And this gift was going to be how you made it in the world. It was going to be your contribution to this reality. It was going to be your fruit for everyone to eat from. And just like a tree, you could produce it quite a bit. So it wasn't like you could really be depleted in that way as long as you were nourished. And thus with everybody being nourished, they continued to give the fruits in which we all ate from. And in this way, we lived harmoniously. But then when you get somebody that they don't want to work, which is the whole embodiment of the king, it's like this one person who is not trying to do any work, but wants to have all these subjects doing all the work for them. This isn't the way. So I'm going to keep going through this. Sending love to Dan Winter. I got a big idea coming. Like I want to get a lot of these beings that have been so instrumental to shaping consciousness in such a positive way, our true mothers and fathers inside the community. I would love to showcase them, their story, as a part of this series, so that the world can see their wisdom, because there's some stuff that, there's masters in this. Okay. Someone's asking the question, how to balance the tool of AI and not get lost in the sauce per se, because the industry is moving extremely fast. It's like anything, there's so many components to it. You can find yourself spending hours. Anything that, as I've addressed in this way, because spirituality also is like that too for me, I always look at it and I think about, like, if you went to Harvard, if you went to Yale, et cetera, like an Ivy League school without privilege, and you really needed to keep your grades and everything on point, you're going to have to really study. And so a lot of times when you're dealing with something powerful, there is a bit of time invested in mastering it. So what you're really determining is this valuable to you? You see what I mean? And there's going to be different strokes for different folks, for real. And so if the value is really low, you find yourself wasting a lot of time, you got to snap back into it. I even do that even with spirituality. If it gets ungrounded, which a lot of our teachings, it talks about, like, you could get into this ungrounded stuff and you're not manifesting anything into physicality, and it's all becoming like just airy. When you see that going on, you have to take that moment, come in and ground in with yourself, right? So this is more of a better way to see, something that is constantly moving. Someone is asking any advice on words of power. I believe at this stage, it would probably be a good idea for humanity to chill out on, like, trying to find some power and realize that they're already in it. Because even these kind of words like abracadabra are direct references to the human body, or you, right? The pentagram. Okay. Like this design, that's what I call it. Even sisters is like the sea stars. That's where that comes from. So this pentagram design, the thing that Venus is doing, her story, like a lot of the mysteries that go on in the planet, why you see pentagrams all on that state flag out there, and what does that really mean when it's a curve versus a straight line? All it's continuously referencing to is the power of the human being and our magical abilities. And then these rituals that take place in these darker places are to connect you with other entities that cohabit with stars. You see what I mean? And then that's what occultism is. See what I mean? So that's what goes on behind closed doors that people don't know about when they're in these institutions, is they're rife with lots of energies running all over the place, ready to interlope and interoperate with these sheep or these people who are not aware of such things and don't know how such things take place, right? So extreme amount of usury happening. Okay, so I think that we've got enough. Yeah, because the questions are a little wild over here. Like as I said, 2025, I'm not gonna play with y'all. Like I'm not playing in here. Like it's the number 9 time, right? So it's gonna check based on everything. Yeah, we're good. So here's where I'll end today. I want to congratulate everyone who has really been consistent. Even at times, like I said, if we're working to get strong here too. Get your legs strong. Even at times when you go back, you go forward sometimes, and you have your doubts, keep persevering, keep studying, keep meditating. You see what I mean? Like every day you wake up and you're in this battle, you're in this challenge until you choose not to be. That's what I said. So when you're individual, and also when I'm talking, here's the thing. You gain the ability to, how to put emphasis and strength within your words. At the end of the day, though, you have to understand that we're beyond the conflict. This is now like, you got new generations coming, and they now need to kind of hear things the same way that we heard them 15 years ago. So this is the thing about when you're even the instructor, is that you're teaching second grade, so you're not teaching, college. So you got to come back to second grade, and you need to teach to that mindset. And by all means, we love to drop plenty of gems for the avid listener, but we also know that, hey, we got people who are just coming in for the first time. They never heard any of this. And so it's not then about them comprehending what you're saying, because they don't really get it yet. They still got to go study for that to make sense. It's about what they feel. And when you're speaking truth is something that can be felt. But at times, again, because, we still have brothers and mothers, sisters and daughters also being abused and being lost within this stuff. So there's real casualties. A lot of times it's played off like a game, but there's real casualty to this. So I'm very serious about this. Like, this is something that I really want to see happen for humanity. I'm not playing with it like it's a game, hee ha ha. I know that, like I said, if you go and jump into that and you think you're going to really what's straddling the fence, you're going to believe in all of that crazy stuff, and then you're going to try to come in and, be all itself, there's going to be a conflict there, and that conflict is going to reach its surface. But at the end of the day, I also trust that everything is going to work itself out. That for each person, that they're going through their own experience to reach this grand awareness. And what I'm saying is also, like, as we advanced even in our technologies, I don't see why we're not advancing in our spiritual technology, where someone who has read all of these books can distill it all into, so what is it saying? So that way I can go beyond where you've gone. And that's the power of our elders. So if we remove the true history, her story, we're going to be just set up for another reboot if somebody wants to do that. I'm definitely not doing that. I'm taking all the collective knowledge of what we've learned so far. It's quite a bit. It's powerful stuff. But I'm also making sense of it and building from the most simplest levels, like, oh, okay, I see how that happened in the primordial times, all the way up to the most complex things. And in this way, we find balance. So I want to say wholeness and balance vibration to everybody. I love so much continuously growing, continuously showing up in the space. And I will continue to do the best that I can, as always, to make sure that you get that absolute 100% truth. So, wholeness, giving thanks.
Why must we stop? I learned nothing from bathing.
True learning requires action and stillness in equal parts. You have made the action. Now seek the stillness. Do not rush your failure. Be patient. Failure is a part of progress. Think on these words and come back better.